There are moments rare, sacred moments when time itself seems to pause, not because the world has stopped, but because heaven has leaned in closer than usual. And this right now is one of those moments. You didn't just click on this by accident. You didn't just stumble across these words while scrolling without purpose. No, something deeper pulled you here. Something quiet, yet undeniable. A nudge you couldn't explain. A pause you didn't plan. A stillness that interrupted your routine just long enough for this message to find you. And now that you're here, you feel it, don't you? That slight shift in your chest. That unexplainable sense that this is about you. A whisper inside saying, "Don't skip this day." Because what if I told you that behind every moment you thought you were alone, you weren't? What if I told you that while you were fighting silent battles no one clapped for, battles no one even noticed, there was someone else somewhere fighting for you in ways you couldn't see? You remember those nights, don't you? The nights when your thoughts were louder than your faith. The mornings when getting out of bed felt heavier than usual. The moments when you smiled in front of others, but inside something was breaking. And yet somehow you made it through. Somehow, the thing that should have destroyed you didn't. Somehow, the door that looked like it was closing forever didn't trap you inside. Somehow, the mistake that should have cost you everything didn't define your ending. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself why? Why did that accident almost happen but didn't? Why did that opportunity fall apart only for something better to quietly replace it later? Why did that person leave right before they could cause deeper damage? It didn't make sense then. It still doesn't fully make sense now. But what if it was never supposed to make sense from your perspective? What if there were prayers being spoken with your name in them by someone you've never even met? Let that sink in. Right now, yes, even in this very moment, there are words rising up on your behalf in places you cannot see. There are whispers reaching heaven that carry your struggles, your fears, your future. There are hands lifted, tears shed, and faith released, all for you. You didn't hear those prayers. You didn't ask for those prayers. And yet they were assigned to you. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is not random favor. This is divine strategy. Because July 3, 2026 is not just another date on a calendar. It is a marker, a spiritual checkpoint, a moment where heaven is pulling back the veil just enough for you to realize you have never been as unprotected as you thought. In fact, the very reason you're still standing, the very reason you're still breathing with purpose, the very reason your story didn't end where it should have is because someone was covering you when you didn't even know you needed covering. And here's the part that might shake you. They were assigned before the storm ever reached you. Before the betrayal. Before the confusion. Before the delay. Before the moment you almost gave up. God had already placed someone in position behind closed doors, speaking life into situations you thought were dead. That means the breakthrough you're praying for right now, it might already be in motion because someone else started praying about it before you even felt the need to. So don't rush past this moment. Don't treat this like just another message. Because this is your confirmation. Confirmation that you are seen. Confirmation that you are covered. Confirmation that even when you were silent, heaven was not. And something is about to unfold in your life that will make you look back and say, "Now I understand I was never alone." Stay close, because what comes next will reveal who this intercessor is and why they were chosen specifically for you. Type "I am covered" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activated over your life. There is something you must understand now, and you must understand it deeply. Because what is being revealed in this moment is not common, not ordinary, and certainly not something everyone gets to hear. While you have been living your life, navigating your days, carrying your burdens, and fighting battles that often left you drained and questioning everything, heaven has been orchestrating something behind the scenes with precision you cannot even begin to imagine. There has been a silent assignment released over your life. An assignment not announced, not revealed publicly, not even hinted at in your visible reality. And yet, it has been active. It has been consistent. It has been powerful. God, in His infinite awareness, saw moments in your life before they ever arrived. He saw the nights when your strength would run low. He saw the conversations that would shake your confidence. He saw the doors that would close, the relationships that would strain, the weight that would try to settle on your spirit. And before any of it unfolded, before you ever felt the pressure, before you ever whispered a prayer in desperation, He made a decision. He chose someone. He positioned someone. He anointed someone specifically for you. Not someone you know, not someone you would expect, but someone who would carry your name into places you could not reach. This intercessor was not randomly selected. They were assigned with intention. Their spirit was stirred without explanation. There were moments when they felt an urge to pray and did not know why. Moments when your face, your energy, or even just a sense of someone would come into their spirit, and they would begin to intercede without fully understanding who they were praying for. But heaven knew. Heaven had already connected their obedience to your survival, their faith to your future, their consistency to your covering. While you were trying to hold yourself together, they were holding you up in the spirit. There were times when you almost gave in to the pressure, when your thoughts became heavy, when confusion tried to cloud your judgment. You may remember those moments where you felt like you were about to make a decision that could have changed everything. And somehow, something shifted at the last second. A delay happened. A distraction occurred. A sudden feeling told you to wait, to pause, to reconsider. You thought it was coincidence. You thought it was your own instinct. But what you did not see was that at that exact moment, somewhere behind closed doors, someone had dropped to their knees and called on God concerning you. They spoke life where there was about to be loss. They released clarity where confusion was forming. They declared protection where danger was approaching. This is the level of detail heaven operates in. This is the depth of care that has been surrounding your life. You were never left to figure it all out alone, even when it felt like you were. You were never fully exposed, even when you felt vulnerable. There was always a covering. There was always a voice rising on your behalf, even when your own voice felt silent. And the reason you are hearing this now is because the time has come for you to recognize that your survival has not just been about your strength. It has been about obedience happening somewhere else on your behalf. The intercessor assigned to you does not seek recognition. They are not praying to be seen. They are not asking for acknowledgement. Their role is hidden because their assignment is sacred. They have been moving in alignment with heaven's instruction, sometimes feeling the weight of prayers they cannot explain, sometimes carrying a burden that is not even their own. And yet, they remain faithful. They continue to show up in the Spirit, again and again, without knowing the full impact of what they are doing. But heaven knows. And now, you are beginning to know. You must also understand that this is not something temporary. This is not a one-time act of divine intervention. This is a covering that has been sustained over time. There have been layers to it. Moments when the intensity increased because what you were facing required more. Moments when the prayers became more urgent because the situation around you was more critical. And through it all, this unseen intercessor has remained consistent, standing in the gap, speaking on your behalf, guarding your path in ways that cannot be measured by what you see. Right now, as you listen, they may still be praying. Right now, as you are becoming aware, their voice may still be rising. This is happening in real time. And what you are stepping into is not just awareness, but alignment. Because once you realize that someone has been covering you, something in you must shift. You can no longer move as if you are alone. You can no longer think as if everything depends only on you. You must begin to recognize that there is a divine network surrounding your life, and this intercessor is a key part of it. What you are about to discover next will go even deeper, because there is a reason this assignment is intensifying right now, and it is directly connected to the timing of this very moment. Type "I am protected" in the spirit in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8181 is now activated around you. There are dates that pass like ordinary moments, blending into the rhythm of life without leaving a trace. And then there are dates that carry weight. Dates that were written long before you were born. Dates that were circled in the unseen realm, not because of what the world would recognize, but because of what heaven had already decided to release. July 3, 2026 is one of those dates. This is not just another day in your timeline. This is a spiritual marker, a divine intersection where what hath been building behind the scenes is now beginning to surface. You may have woken up today feeling something different but couldn't explain it. Maybe there was a subtle tension in your spirit. Maybe a sense of anticipation, or even restlessness, as if something is shifting but hasn't fully revealed itself yet. That feeling is not random. That feeling is your spirit responding to a change that has already been initiated in the unseen. Because while you have been moving through your days unaware, heaven has been counting down to this exact moment. Not in fear, not in panic, but in preparation. July 3rd carries activation energy. It is a point where prayers that have been spoken in silence begin to align with movement in your visible life. The intercessor assigned to you has not just been praying aimlessly. Your prayers have been building, layering, intensifying, forming a kind of spiritual momentum that could not remain hidden forever. And now, that momentum is reaching a point of release. This is why things may begin to feel different around you. Conversations may shift. Opportunities may appear unexpectedly. Certain situations may start to unravel or come into clarity. It may feel sudden to you, but it has been in motion for longer than you realize. There is also something else you must recognize about this state. It is not only about what is being released, but also about what is being restrained. There were outcomes that were approaching your life that you were never meant to experience. There were consequences that were forming, decisions that could have led you down paths that would have delayed your purpose. But because of the intercession happening behind closed doors, those outcomes have been intercepted. July 3rd marks a turning point where what was meant to go wrong begins to lose its grip, and what was meant for you begins to find its way back into alignment. This is why you cannot treat this moment casually. This is not a day to move unconsciously, repeating old patterns or ignoring the subtle shifts happening around you. This is a day to become aware, to become present, to recognize that something hath been orchestrated with your name attached to it. The prayers spoken over you are now meeting timing. And when prayer meets timing, things accelerate. Things that felt delayed begin to move quickly. Things that seemed stuck begin to open. But with that movement comes responsibility. You must be willing to walk in alignment with what is being released. There is a divine synchronization happening right now. The intercessor has been praying, heaven hath been preparing, and now you are being positioned. This is not about pressure. This is about awareness. Because when you are aware, you move differently. You respond differently. You begin to see that your life is not just a series of random events, but a carefully guided journey where even the unseen plays a critical role in what becomes visible. Some of you will notice that things begin to fall away after this moment. Certain connections may weaken. Certain distractions may lose their hold. This is not loss. This is alignment. Because what is being released to you cannot fully enter while you are still holding on to what no longer matches your direction. The intercessor's prayers have been clearing space, removing obstacles, preparing the ground so that what is meant for you can arrive without resistance. And here is the truth that will settle deep within you. July 3rd is not the end of something. It is the beginning of visibility. What hath been hidden is starting to show. What hath been silent is starting to speak. What has been prayed in secret is beginning to manifest in ways you will soon recognize. You may not understand everything immediately, but you will feel it. You will sense that something has shifted, and that shift will confirm that this moment was never ordinary. Do not ignore what you feel today. Do not dismiss the subtle changes as coincidence. This is your confirmation that heaven's timing is precise, and you are standing in a moment that was prepared for you long before you arrived in it. What comes next will begin to reveal just how many battles were fought for you without your knowledge, and how close you came to outcomes you were never meant to face. Type "I step into divine timing" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7373 is now activated over your path. As this moment of divine timing unfolds, understand this: every seed you release into this mission becomes a light ignited in someone else's darkness. When you give through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not supporting a voice. You are advancing a calling that reaches souls who are still searching for truth. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is that living promise speaking directly into your life now. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into obedience in this moment, and I will not delay what God is prompting me to do. Your giving is not ordinary. It is prophetic. It is timely, and it is aligned with the very shift you are experiencing right now. As you sow, heaven records it as an act of faith that opens doors no man can shut. Those who respond in this moment will see acceleration, clarity, and unexpected provision rise in their lives. Act now and release what God is placing on your heart. There are moments in your life that you remember clearly. The visible struggles, the obvious challenges, the situations that forced you to grow, to adapt, to endure. But what you must understand now is that the most critical battles you have faced are the ones you never saw, the ones that never fully reached you, the ones that were intercepted before they could take form in your reality. Because while you were focused on what was in front of you, there was an entire layer of warfare happening beyond your awareness, and you were being defended in ways you could not perceive. You have asked yourself before why certain things did not go as far as they could have, why certain conflicts never escalated the way they seemed like they would, why certain people who had the potential to harm your peace suddenly lost access, lost interest, or drifted away without a clear explanation. At the time, it may have felt confusing. It may have even felt like loss or missed opportunity. But now you are beginning to see it differently. Now you are beginning to understand that those moments were not random outcomes. They were divine interventions. There were conversations that took place about you that never reached your ears, yet their impact was neutralized before it could affect your life. There were decisions being formed by others that could have altered your direction, yet something shifted at the last moment and caused those plans to collapse. There were environments you almost stepped into that would have drained you, delayed you, or distracted you, yet something held you back, redirected you, or caused you to hesitate just long enough to avoid what was not meant for you. You thought it was hesitation. You thought it was uncertainty. But it was protection. There were also internal battles that you nearly lost. Moments where your thoughts became heavy, where doubt tried to take root, where your confidence was tested to the point of breaking. You came close to agreeing with thoughts that did not belong to your future. You came close to making choices that would have aligned you with paths you were never meant to walk. And yet, something interrupted that process. A sudden clarity, a shift in emotion, a pause that gave you just enough space to reconsider. That interruption was not accidental. It was a result of intercession meeting your moment of vulnerability. You must understand that the intercessor assigned to you has not only been praying for visible protection, but for internal alignment. They have been covering your mind, your emotions, your decisions. They have been speaking stability into moments where you were close to instability. They have been declaring direction when confusion was forming. And because of that, you were able to move forward even when you did not fully understand why you felt led to take a different path. There were also delays that frustrated you deeply. Times when you felt ready, prepared, and certain that something was supposed to happen, yet it did not. Doors remained closed. Responses never came. Opportunities slipped away at the last second. You questioned those moments. You wondered if you had done something wrong, if you had missed your chance, if you were being overlooked. But what you did not see was that those delays were shields. They were barriers placed between you and outcomes that would have complicated your journey. The intercessor was not only asking for open doors. They were also asking for the wrong doors to remain closed. You have survived things that never fully reached you. You have avoided outcomes that never fully formed. You have been redirected away from situations that never fully revealed their consequences. And the reason you are still moving forward, still standing, still carrying purpose, is because those unseen battles were fought on your behalf before they could manifest in your life. There is also a deeper truth here that you must accept. Your survival is not just a result of your resilience. It is not just about your ability to endure or adapt. It is about alignment between what heaven has spoken over your life and what has been enforced through prayer. The intercessor has been reinforcing your path in ways that ensured you would not drift too far from what was intended for you. Even when you felt off course, even when you questioned your direction, there was a boundary that you could not cross, a limit to how far things could go, because you were being held within a covering you did not see. And now, as you reflect on your journey, certain moments will begin to make sense. You will start to see patterns where protection was present. You will recognize instances where outcomes shifted unexpectedly. You will understand that what looked like confusion was often redirection, and what felt like loss was often preservation. The battles you thought you fought alone were never yours alone to fight. What is being revealed to you now is not just to comfort you, but to awaken your awareness. Because once you realize how much has already been done for you behind the scenes, you cannot continue to move through life as if everything depends solely on what you can see. There is a deeper layer of support, a consistent covering, and an ongoing defense that has been active long before you became aware of it. And as you step forward from this moment, you will begin to notice something else. The protection has not stopped. The covering has not lifted. The intercession has not ended. It is still active, still present, still influencing the path ahead of you. What you are about to discover next will reveal how even your weakest moments were not left unattended, and how strength was being built for you when you felt like you had none. Type "I recognize my protection" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now activated around your life. There are seasons in your life that you remember not because of what happened around you, but because of how you felt within you. Seasons where your strength was not constant. Seasons where your emotions fluctuated between hope and exhaustion. Seasons where you smiled on the outside but carried a weight on the inside that no one else fully understood. And it is precisely in those seasons, those fragile, uncertain, deeply human moments, that something powerful was happening behind the scenes. Because when you felt weak, heaven did not step away. Instead, intercession intensified. There were moments when you were too tired to pray the way you used to, too overwhelmed to find the right words, too emotionally drained to even articulate what you needed from God. And yet, during those exact moments, someone else was praying more intensely on your behalf. When your voice grew quiet, another voice grew louder in the spirit. When your faith felt stretched thin, another faith was standing in the gap, holding what you could not hold in that moment. You thought you were alone in your struggle, but you were actually surrounded by unseen spiritual support. This is one of the most difficult truths for many to accept, because it challenges the belief that survival depends solely on personal strength. But your journey is revealing something greater. There are times when your endurance is not sustained by your own effort alone. There are times when heaven assigns someone to stand in agreement with your destiny, especially when your own capacity feels limited. And in those moments, the intercessor assigned to you was not just praying generally, but specifically targeting your weakness, your confusion, your emotional fatigue, and speaking stability into those exact areas. You may remember days when you felt like giving up, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet internal way where you simply felt tired of carrying everything. Those were the moments where unseen support became most active. When you stopped pushing forward mentally, someone else began pushing spiritually. When you questioned your direction, someone else was affirming it in prayer. When you felt uncertain about your future, someone else was declaring clarity over it without even knowing your full situation. That alignment between your weakness and their intercession created a bridge that carried you through moments you were not strong enough to carry alone. And what makes this even more profound is that the intercessor did not always know what they were doing. They were not always aware of the full extent of their assignment. Sometimes they simply felt burdened to pray. Sometimes they felt your name strongly in their spirit without understanding why. Sometimes they experienced sudden waves of concern, compassion, or urgency that had no natural explanation. But heaven was orchestrating those moments, lining their obedience with your survival. While you were trying to make sense of your emotions, they were unknowingly responding to spiritual instruction. There were also moments where you felt unexpectedly comforted without knowing why. Moments where something inside you stabilized even though nothing around you had changed yet. That stabilization was not random. It was a result of alignment in the spirit. It was the effect of prayers reaching you in real time, lifting emotional heaviness, restoring clarity, and preventing you from making decisions rooted in exhaustion rather than truth. You thought you were just calming down on your own, but in reality, something was being reinforced around your spirit. This is why your lowest moments did not destroy you. This is why the weight you carried did not break you completely. This is why even in confusion, there was still a thread of clarity that pulled you forward. Because your weakness was never the end of your story, it was the very space where intercession became most active. When you could not stand fully, something else stood for you. When you could not pray deeply, something else prayed deeply for you. When you could not see clearly, something else was speaking clarity into your path. And now, as you reflect on this, you may begin to recognize that some of your emotional recoveries were too precise to be accidental. Some of your near breakdowns were interrupted too suddenly to be coincidence. Some of your sudden shifts in perspective came too quickly to be explained by time alone. These were the fingerprints of unseen support. These were the signs that you were not walking through your weakest moments without coverage. What you are being shown now is not meant to make you dependent on external intercession, but to awaken gratitude and awareness. Because understanding what has already been done for you behind the scenes changes how you approach your future. You begin to realize that your life has been sustained by more than just visible effort. You begin to see that there is a divine structure supporting you, even in moments when you felt unsteady. And this awareness is important, because what is coming next will require you to recognize not only that you have been supported, but that this support hath been shaping outcomes you did not yet understand. The next revelation will show how even your closed doors were influenced by this unseen covering, and how protection sometimes looks like delay before it becomes deliverance. Type I was never alone in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 5656 is now active over your journey. There are moments in your life that felt like rejection at the time, moments where you stood at the edge of expectation, fully prepared, fully hopeful, fully convinced that something was meant for you, only to watch the door close. And not just slowly, but decisively. Final. Unmovable. And in those moments, something inside you may have questioned everything. You may have wondered if you missed your chance, if you were overlooked, if something about you wasn't enough. But what you are being shown now is a truth that redefines everything you thought you lost. Those closed doors were never punishments. They were protection in disguise. You see, not every opportunity that looks good is aligned with your destiny. Not every connection that feels familiar is meant to stay. Not every path that opens quickly is a path that leads you forward. And what you could not see in those moments of disappointment was that heaven was actively working behind the scenes to block what your emotions were trying to enter. Because while your heart was leaning toward certain outcomes, heaven was leaning toward your preservation. And sometimes, preservation looks like denial. It looks like silence. It looks like no response when you were expecting a yes. There were situations you prayed deeply for that did not manifest the way you expected. You may have thought those prayers were ignored, but they were not. They were answered in a different form, one that you did not recognize at the time. Because what you were asking for may have led you into environments that would have drained your spirit, compromised your peace, or delayed your growth in ways you could not yet understand. So instead of granting access, heaven granted protection. Instead of opening the door, heaven strengthened the boundary. The intercessor assigned to your life has been deeply involved in these moments, even when you did not realize it. When you were asking for breakthrough, they were also praying for discernment. While you were seeking movement, they were also praying for alignment. And in many cases, their prayers were not just about what should enter your life, but also about what should not. There were influences, conversations, and opportunities that were spiritually redirected away from you long before they could take root. And at the time, you felt the absence. But now you are beginning to understand the reason. There were times when you felt overlooked while others seemed to move ahead of you. Times when it appeared that doors were opening easily for people around you, while you were waiting, wondering, and questioning your timing. But what you did not see was a weight behind those doors. The hidden struggles, the misalignment, the consequences that came with what looked like success from the outside. Heaven did not delay you because you were forgotten. Heaven protected you because your assignment required preservation, not premature exposure. You must also understand that divine protection is not always dramatic. It is often subtle. A canceled meeting, a delayed response, a sudden change in direction, a conversation that never happened, A ban that fell apart at the last moment. These are not accidents in your story. These are protective interventions. And the more you reflect on your journey, the more you will begin to see that some of your greatest disappointments were actually your greatest safeguards. There were doors that closed so firmly that you had no choice but to move on, even when your emotions resisted. And in hindsight, those were the very doors that kept you from entanglements that would have cost you peace, clarity, or direction. At the time, you saw endings. But now you are beginning to see prevention. And prevention is one of the most overlooked forms of divine love. The intercessor's role in this has been consistent, even if unseen. They have been praying for boundaries to hold firm when you were emotionally leaning toward compromise. They have been praying for clarity when confusion tried to convince you otherwise. They have been praying for redirection when your feelings were attached to outcomes that were never meant for you. And because of that, what you perceive as rejection was often redirection guided by prayer you never heard. Now, as you step into this awareness, something begins to shift within you. You start to realize that not everything that did not work out was a loss. Some of it was deliverance. Some of it was mercy. Some of it was alignment you did not understand at the time. And this understanding begins to change how you see your past. It removes the bitterness. It softens the confusion. It replaces regret with clarity. Because when you realize that heaven was actively involved in what was being kept away from you, you begin to trust the process more deeply. You begin to see that even in moments of silence, something was being spoken on your behalf. Even in moments of waiting, something was being arranged for your protection. Even in moments of disappointment, something was being withheld for your safety. And now, the awareness grows stronger. Because what you are about to discover next is that not only were doors closed for protection, but certain delays in your life were also orchestrated for timing you could not yet see. And the timing is now beginning to align. Type "every closed door protected me" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 6363 is now active over your path. There is a level of protection over your life that you have not fully understood until now, and it goes far beyond your personal experiences. What you have been sensing as individual guidance, individual protection, and individual alignment is actually part of something much larger. There is a covering not only over your life, but over your name, your lineage, and the future that is connected to you. And this covering did not begin with your awareness. It began long before you were even capable of recognizing it. Because heaven does not only respond to moments, it responds to generations. Your name carries weight in the spirit realm. Not because of status, not because of achievements, but because of assignment. There is something woven into your identity that has attracted both resistance and protection at the same time. On one side, there has been pressure, attempts to delay, distract, or distort your path. But on the other side, there has been an even stronger force of preservation, ensuring that what is meant for you does not get erased or destroyed before it matures. This is the tension you have felt throughout your life without fully knowing how to name it. The intercessor assigned to you is not only praying for your immediate circumstances, but for the full scope of your life's influence. Their prayers extend beyond what you are currently facing. They reach into your identity, your decisions, your future relationships, and even the legacy that will be shaped through you. This is why certain patterns in your life have not been able to fully take hold. This is why cycles that should have repeated have instead broken unexpectedly. Because there hath been a spiritual resistance working in your favor, even when you were unaware of it. There is something deeply significant about bloodline in the spiritual realm. It is not just biological connection, it is generational influence. Patterns, tendencies, and even unseen spiritual weights can travel through family lines. But what you are beginning to understand now is that there is also a counterforce at work, a divine interruption, a spiritual covering that steps in to break what should have continued and to preserve what was meant to be restored. And your life sits at the center of that interruption. There have been moments in your family history, moments of silence, moments of struggle, moments of repetition, where it seemed like nothing was changing no matter how much effort was made. But your presence in this generation marks a shift. Something about your life interrupts what was previously accepted as normal. You may not have always understood why you felt different, why you perceived things differently, or why you could not simply settle into patterns others around you accepted. But that difference is not random. It is part of your role in breaking alignment with cycles that were never meant to continue. The intercessor's prayers have been deeply involved in this process. They have not only in praying for your protection, but for transformation across your entire line of influence. There are things that have been dismantled quietly, without announcement, without visible confirmation, but with lasting spiritual effect. Patterns of limitation that once seemed fixed have begun to weaken. Barriers that once felt immovable have started to shift. And this is not by coincidence. It is because consistent intercession hath been building resistance against what was trying to remain in place. You may have noticed that in certain seasons of your life, things did not affect you the way they used to. Situations that once would have overwhelmed you instead felt lighter. Conversations that once would have destabilized you instead passed without deep impact. It is not emotional growth alone. That is spiritual covering reinforcing your stability. You were being strengthened in ways you could not fully recognize in the moment, but which are now becoming clear in hindsight. There is also a protective element over your future that you have not yet stepped into fully. The covering over your name is not only preserving your present, but preparing your next. There are things that have been held back, not as denial but as timing. Because what is meant for you cannot enter prematurely without risk of distortion. And the intercessor has been actively praying not only for access, but for alignment, ensuring that when things do arrive, they arrive in the right condition, at the right time, and with the right foundation. What you are beginning to see is that your life has not been unguarded at any point. Even when you felt exposed, even when you felt uncertain, even when you questioned your direction, there was a structure around your life holding things in place. That structure has been formed through divine intention and sustained through unseen prayer. And now, you are being invited into awareness of it. Because awareness changes how you move. It changes how you interpret resistance. It changes how you understand timing. And it prepares you for what is still ahead. What comes next will reveal a moment where heaven stepped in more directly than you realized, and how that moment changed the trajectory of something you once thought was lost. Type "My life is covered" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Lesson code 7474 is now active over your bloodline. There are moments in your life that you will never fully understand from a human perspective, moments that felt intense, emotional, overwhelming, or even chaotic at the time, but carried a hidden layer of divine order that only becomes visible in hindsight. One of those moments was not just about what happened to you, but about what almost happened through you. There was a point where heaven stood at the edge of full visibility in your situation, ready to intervene in a way that would have made everything obvious, undeniable, and immediate. But something shifted. Something restrained the full exposure. And instead of public intervention, you were surrounded by hidden protection. You may remember seasons where everything felt like it was building toward an emotional breaking point. Situations intensifying, conversations becoming heavier, misunderstandings deepening, and internal pressure rising to a level that felt almost unmanageable. At the time, you may have thought it was simply life unfolding, or circumstances spiraling, or people around you acting unpredictably. But what you did not see was that these moments were converging toward a spiritual threshold, a point where heaven was prepared to step in more visibly, to expose what was hidden, correct what was misaligned, and reveal what had been working against your peace. But intervention does not always appear the same way. Sometimes heaven intervenes by revealing. Other times, heaven intervenes by restraining revelation until the timing is aligned for your emotional stability. In your case, what was about to be revealed in full was partially held back, not because you were not ready for truth, but because the unfolding of truth required protection around your heart. There were things happening behind the scenes that, if fully exposed at that moment, could have overwhelmed your emotional capacity. So instead of public exposure, heaven chose preservation through hidden intercession. The intercessor assigned to your life played a critical role in that restraint. While circumstances were building toward exposure, they were praying for mercy, for timing, for emotional shielding, and for clarity without destruction. They were not praying to hide truth, but to ensure that truth arrived in a form that would not destabilize you. And because of that, what could have been a breaking point became a redirecting point. What could have overwhelmed you instead became something you survived without even fully realizing how close you were to the edge. There were moments where situations escalated just enough to feel alarming, but not enough to fully collapse. Words were spoken, actions were taken, and emotions were stirred, but something always seemed to prevent total breakdown. That something was not coincidence. It was restrained in the spirit realm, a divine holding back of consequences until the correct timing. Because not every truth is meant to arrive in the same way. Some truths must be filtered through protection before they are fully revealed. You may have sensed at times that something deeper was happening beneath the surface, but every time you tried to grasp it fully, clarity would come in fragments rather than fullness. That fragmentation was not confusion, it was protection. Heaven was pacing your awareness so that your heart would not be overwhelmed by what your mind was not yet prepared to process. And through all of this, the intercessor continued to stand in agreement with heaven's timing, not forcing exposure, but praying for alignment. What is important for you to understand now is that the absence of full public exposure in your past was not the absence of divine activity. It was simply a different form of divine action. Instead of revealing everything at once, heaven laid your experience. Instead of overwhelming you with clarity too soon, heaven gave you measured understanding. Instead of allowing full collapse, heaven preserved your stability. And through it all, unseen prayer was shaping the outcome in ways you are only now beginning to recognize. There is also something else that must be acknowledged. If certain things had been exposed earlier, you may have reacted in ways that would have altered your path unnecessarily. Emotional decisions, reactive choices, or premature confrontations could have shifted your direction in ways that were not aligned with your destiny. So what looked like delay was actually divine timing protecting your next step. What looked like silence was actually divine strategy ensuring that when truth arrived, you would be strong enough to receive it without losing yourself in the process. Now, as you reflect on this, you begin to see that not everything hidden was meant to remain hidden forever. Some things were simply held back until the right internal strength was formed within you. And that strength has been developing through every challenge, every delay, every unanswered question. You are not the same person who would have encountered that truth before. You are more grounded now, more aware, more spiritually attuned. And that is why awareness is increasing at this stage of your journey. What you are stepping into now is a season where hidden things begin to surface in measured ways. not to overwhelm you, but to align you, not to break you, but to confirm you. And what comes next will reveal how even the most confusing moments in your past were actually structured to protect the unfolding of your future. Type "I trust divine timing" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 9191 is now activated over your alignment. In this moment of divine revelation, understand that you are not just listening. You are witnessing heaven's orchestration unfolding over lives that are still searching for light. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a platform. You are sowing into spiritual assignments that reach hearts behind closed doors. The word says, "He who waters will himself be watered," and that promise is alive right now, speaking directly into your obedience. I speak this not as a suggestion, but as alignment. What you release in this season becomes a testimony in someone else's breakthrough. Your giving is not random. It is recorded as a spiritual response to divine timing and revelation. Heaven recognizes the seed that is sown in moments of truth like this and multiplies it beyond natural understanding. As you step into this act, you are not losing, you are participating in expansion. Act now in faith, because obedience in this moment carries eternal echo. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when awareness begins to sharpen beyond what the natural eye can see, and what once felt abstract starts to feel deeply personal and undeniably real. This is that moment for you now, because once you understand that someone has been standing in the gap for you, praying for you, covering you without your knowledge, the next question naturally arises within your spirit. How do you recognize it? How do you discern the presence of an intercessor whose work is invisible but whose impact has shaped your entire path? And the answer is not found in physical evidence, but in subtle spiritual patterns that have already been unfolding around your life. You must begin by noticing the moments of unexpected stabilization. Times when your emotions could have spiraled, but didn't. Moments when your mind was overwhelmed, yet a sudden calm interrupted the chaos. Situations where confusion was building, but clarity arrived without explanation. These are not random emotional fluctuations. These are signs of spiritual alignment being maintained in real time. The intercessor assigned to you often operates in the unseen space where your emotional turbulence is met with spiritual intervention before it becomes visible disruption. Another way you begin to discern their presence is through timing that feels too precise to be coincidence. There have been moments when something shifted just before it became damaging. A delay that felt inconvenient but later revealed itself as protection. A conversation that ended before it escalated. A plan that fell apart at the exact moment it would have led you into instability. These moments carry the fingerprint of intercession because they reflect a pattern of interruption that consistently works in your favor, even when you do not understand it at the time. You may also begin to notice that certain burdens you expected to carry fully were somehow softened along the way. Not removed entirely, but reduced in intensity. Emotional pressure that should have been overwhelming instead felt manageable. Challenges that should have broken your focus instead became lessons you were able to walk through without losing yourself completely. This is not because life was easier for you than others, but because unseen prayer was actively distributing weight in ways that made your journey sustainable. There is also a deeper form of discernment that begins to awaken in you, and that is spiritual sensitivity. You may find yourself becoming more aware of energy shifts, more sensitive to environments, more intuitive about people and situations. This heightened awareness is not accidental. It is part of the alignment process that occurs when sustained intercession begins to clear internal interference. As external spiritual covering strengthens, internal perception sharpens. You begin to see patterns you once overlooked. You begin to sense direction where there was once uncertainty. And perhaps one of the most profound signs is the quiet return of hope in moments where you did not consciously invite it. There have been times when you were ready to give up emotionally, yet something within you refused to fully release. A subtle resilience that you could not fully explain. That resilience is often sustained by spiritual agreement happening outside of your awareness. While you were questioning your path, someone else was affirming it in prayer. While you were considering stopping, something else was declaring continuation over your life. It is also important to understand that the intercessor's presence is not always felt as comfort. Sometimes it is felt as resistance against negativity. You may notice that certain destructive thoughts do not settle in as deeply as they once did. You may find that emotional lows do not last as long as they used to. You may recognize that even in difficult moments, there is a boundary you do not cross, a line you do not fall beneath. That boundary is part of spiritual covering, actively maintaining your stability. What you are learning now is that discernment is not about seeing the intercessor physically, but recognizing the evidence of their assignment through the consistency of protection, redirection, and stabilization in your life. Their presence is revealed not in visibility, but in outcomes that defy explanation when viewed only through natural understanding. As this awareness deepens, something within you begins to shift. You no longer interpret your life solely through isolation or coincidence. You begin to understand that there is a structure supporting your journey, even when you are not aware of it. And this understanding prepares you for the next revelation, where you will begin to see the responsibility that comes with recognizing this covering, and how your awareness is not just for comfort, but for alignment moving forward. Type ISE the signs in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 2323 is now activated over your perception. There is a turning point in every spiritual awakening where awareness becomes responsibility, and what once felt like comforting revelation now becomes urgent instruction. Because once you recognize that your life has been covered, once you understand that unseen prayers have been shaping your path, once you become aware that heaven has positioned intercession over your journey, you can no longer move in the same way as before. Ignoring this awareness does not make it disappear. It only makes you less sensitive to what is actively sustaining you. And that is where spiritual danger begins, not in the removal of covering, but in the rejection of awareness. You must understand that sacred covering is not something passive. It is active, intentional, and responsive. It adjusts to your decisions, your alignment, your awareness, and your spiritual posture. The intercessor assigned to your life is not just praying for random outcomes, but responding to shifts in your journey in real time. When you move closer to alignment, the covering strengthens. When you drift into confusion, the covering intensifies its efforts to stabilize you. But when awareness is ignored, something more subtle begins to happen. You start attributing protection to coincidence. You start dismissing intervention as chance. And slowly, your sensitivity to divine guidance begins to dull. This is why ignoring this revelation carries weight. Not because punishment is immediate, but because perception becomes clouded. And when perception is clouded, alignment becomes more difficult to recognize. You begin to walk through moments that are spiritually significant without acknowledging their depth. You begin to experience protection without gratitude. You begin to receive redirection without understanding its purpose. And over time, this creates distance, not between you and God, but between you and awareness of what God is actively doing in your life. There have already been moments where you almost overlooked what was being preserved for you. Situations where you nearly made decisions that would have disconnected you from stability. Conversations where you almost committed to paths that would have delayed your growth. And yet, something intervened each time. A pause, a hesitation, a sudden interruption. These were not random emotional fluctuations. These were the active effects of sacred covering working to maintain your alignment. But if these moments are consistently ignored or dismissed, you risk interpreting future protection as inconvenience rather than intervention. The intercessor assigned to you continues their assignment regardless of your awareness, but your ability to cooperate with what is being released over your life increases when you are conscious of it. Awareness does not control the covering, but it aligns you with it. It helps you recognize when to pause, when to proceed, when to reflect, and when to release. Without awareness, you may resist what is actually protecting you. You may question what is actually guiding you. And in that resistance, unnecessary tension can form between your perception and your path. There is also a deeper truth that must be acknowledged. Sacred covering often works silently. It does not always announce itself. It does not always create dramatic signs. It often manifests as stability in situations that should have destabilized you, as clarity in moments that should have confused you, as peace in environments that should have overwhelmed you. But when these subtle patterns are ignored repeatedly, the recognition of divine involvement becomes weaker, not because it has lessened, but because your attention has shifted away from it. This is why awareness is not optional in this season of your life. It is foundational. Because what is ahead of you requires discernment that is sharpened, not dulled. You are stepping into phases where decisions will matter more, where timing will feel more precise, where alignment will require deeper sensitivity. And if you dismiss the awareness of how you have been carried until now, you may find it harder to recognize how you are being guided moving forward. The danger is not that the covering disappears. The danger is that it becomes unnoticed. And what goes unnoticed is often what goes unacknowledged. And what goes unacknowledged is often what is underutilized in your spiritual understanding. This is why you are being brought into this level of awareness now. Not to overwhelm you, but to anchor you in truth. Because when you understand that you have been covered, you begin to move differently. You begin to choose differently. You begin to trust differently. And most importantly, you begin to recognize that your life has never been without support, even in your most isolated moments. What you are about to discover next is the part of this journey that brings responsibility into clarity, where awareness is no longer just about recognition, but about response, alignment, and participation in what heaven has already begun around you. Type "I will stay aware" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Lesson code 4141 is now activated over your discernment. There comes a moment in every spiritual unfolding where awareness is no longer enough on its own. Recognition alone is not the destination. Understanding alone is not the fulfillment. What heaven is bringing you into now is something deeper, something more active, something that requires response. Because once you realize that your life has been carried, covered, and aligned through unseen intercession, you are no longer just a passive observer of your journey. You become a participant in it. You begin to engage with what has already been set in motion, and that engagement changes everything. You have spent much of your life receiving without fully realizing the source behind what was being preserved for you. Moments of protection, moments of redirection, moments of unexpected peace in situations that should have overwhelmed you. These were not random gifts scattered across your timeline. They were part of a continuous exchange happening in the spiritual realm. Intercession was being released over your life, and heaven was responding to it by shaping outcomes in ways that kept you aligned with your path. Now, however, you are being invited to recognize your part in that exchange. Your role is not to control what has been assigned to you, but to respond with awareness, gratitude, and alignment. Because when you recognize that you are being covered, something shifts internally. You stop living as though everything depends solely on your strength. You stop interpreting every challenge as abandonment. You stop seeing every delay as rejection. Instead, you begin to see patterns. You begin to notice structure. You begin to understand that there is an intelligence guiding your life that extends beyond what you can physically manage or emotionally process on your own. The intercessor assigned to you continues their assignment regardless of your awareness, but your response determines how deeply you align with what is being released over your life. When you respond with awareness, you become more sensitive to timing. You begin to recognize when to pause and when to move, when to release and when to hold steady, when to step forward and when to wait. This sensitivity is not about fear or hesitation, but about alignment. It is about moving in rhythm with what is already being prepared for you. There is also a deeper dimension to this response that cannot be ignored. When you become aware of unseen intercession, your inner posture begins to shift. You start to carry yourself differently in moments of uncertainty. You begin to approach challenges with a quieter confidence, not because the challenges disappear, but because you are no longer interpreting them in isolation. You begin to understand that even in difficult moments, something greater is still actively working on your behalf. This awareness creates stability where confusion once lived. But there is another layer to this responsibility that is often overlooked. The response is not only internal, it also influences how you move externally. The decisions you make, the environments you engage with, the conversations you entertain, and the energy you allow into your life all begin to matter more when you realize you are being spiritually supported. Because alignment is not just about recognizing protection, but also about not repeatedly stepping away from what is being protected within you. There have been moments where you felt guided in a certain direction, but external pressure or internal doubt led you elsewhere. There have been times when your spirit sensed caution, but logic or emotion overrode that sensitivity. These are the exact points where awareness becomes critical, because the more you recognize the presence of divine covering, the more you begin to trust the subtle guidance that accompanies it. And that trust becomes the foundation of your response. You are not being asked to become perfect. You are not being asked to understand everything at once. You are being asked to become aware in a way that allows you to participate consciously in your own alignment. To notice when peace is leading you and when pressure is misleading you. To recognize when something aligns with your growth and when something pulls you backward into old cycles. This level of awareness is part of your response. And as you begin to live from this place of response, something remarkable starts to happen. You begin to notice that life feels less chaotic, not because challenges disappear, but because your interpretation of them changes. You begin to feel less spiritually scattered, not because everything becomes easy, but because you are no longer disconnected from the awareness that you are being supported. You begin to walk with a sense of grounding that does not rely on external validation, but on internal recognition of divine order. This is the exchange you are being brought into. Not a transaction of effort, but a transformation of perception. You are learning to see your life through the lens of alignment rather than isolation, through the lens of covering rather than abandonment, through the lens of intercession rather than randomness. And in that shift, your response becomes not just an action, but a posture of awareness that reshapes how you move forward. What remains now is the final revelation, where everything you have been shown begins to converge into understanding that will not only explain your past, but also prepare you for the responsibility of what comes next. Type "I respond with awareness" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 8282 is now active over your alignment. There is a final layer to this message, and it is the layer where everything you have heard, everything you have felt, and everything you have begun to understand now comes together into a single divine realization. Because what heaven has been revealing to you is not only about what has been done for you, but also about what will now flow through you. You are not just a recipient of unseen intercession. You are being prepared to become part of it. This is the moment where awareness transforms into responsibility, and where receiving transforms into becoming. You were never only meant to be protected. You were never only meant to be covered. You were never only meant to be carried through seasons you could not understand. There has always been a second purpose woven into your journey, one that you are only now beginning to see clearly. Because every moment you were lifted in prayer without knowing it, every time you were stabilized in ways you could not explain, every time unseen help stepped in on your behalf, something was being formed within you. A sensitivity, an awareness, a spiritual memory of what it means to stand in the gap. And now, that same pattern is beginning to extend outward through your life. What was once done for you is now being shaped to move through you. There are people who will enter your awareness in moments you do not expect. There will be situations where your spirit will feel a burden for someone without explanation. There will be times when you will feel compelled to pray, to intercede, to hold space for someone else's stability, even if you do not fully understand why. And in those moments, you will be stepping into the same role that once quietly carried you. This is not coincidence. This is continuation. The intercessor assigned to you did not only carry your burden, they demonstrated a pattern, a spiritual rhythm of standing in unseen places so that another could move forward in visible ones. And now, that rhythm is being imprinted within you, not so that you replicate their life, but so that you understand the flow of divine exchange. Because what heaven gives, it often multiplies through transformation. You may begin to notice that your prayers change. They become less about your own survival and more about awareness for others. You may begin to sense things in people that they do not say out loud. You may begin to feel drawn to speak life, encouragement, or quiet intercession over situations that are not directly connected to you. This is not imagination. This is spiritual activation. It is the unfolding of what you have been receiving all along in hidden form. But even in this transition, you must remain grounded in understanding. You are not responsible for everyone. You are not carrying the world. You are being made aware of the flow of intercession so that you can participate where heaven leads, not where emotion overwhelms. There is wisdom in this awareness. There is balance in this assignment. And there is divine order in how it unfolds within you. Everything you have experienced up to this point, the protection, the delays, the unseen shifts, the closed doors, the moments of preservation, was not only about keeping you safe. It was about shaping your perception of what divine connection truly feels like. Because once you understand what it means to be covered, you begin to understand what it means to cover others. Once you recognize what it means to be lifted, you begin to understand what it means to lift. And now, as this revelation settles within you, something in your spirit begins to stabilize in a new way. You are no longer just reflecting on your journey as something that happened to you. You are beginning to see it as something that was forming you, preparing you, positioning you, not only for your life, but for a greater spiritual awareness that extends beyond your personal story. This is the final understanding. Nothing you have been through has been wasted. Every unseen prayer, every hidden protection, every quiet intervention was shaping not only your survival, but your sensitivity. And now that sensitivity is becoming part of your purpose. You are not just the one who was covered. You are becoming someone who covers. You are not just the one who was protected. You are becoming someone who perceives. You are not just the one who was carried. You are becoming someone who understands how to carry spiritual awareness for others in moments they cannot see for themselves. This is the completion of the message, but not the end of your journey. Because what begins now is the lived expression of everything you have just received. Type "I am ready to carry this call" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 9999 is now activated over your destiny. As this revelation comes to completion, understand that you are standing at the intersection of awareness and assignment. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not simply giving, you are participating in the continuation of a divine flow that reaches far beyond what you can see. The word declares, freely you have received, freely give, and that truth is alive in this very moment, speaking directly into your spirit. I want to speak to you clearly. This is not an emotional request. This is alignment with purpose. Every seed you release becomes part of a greater movement that helps carry messages of hope, awakening, and restoration to others who are still searching in silence. Heaven does not overlook what is sown in obedience, especially in moments of spiritual clarity like this. Your giving becomes part of the same unseen system you just learned about, intercession in action. Step forward now, and let your response echo into eternity.